Hi, I'm Revis, and today I'm sharing with you all my last Infinity Conquest from last season. This is one that I actually did off stream, so I'm fully focused in on the gameplay and really just trying to play the best that I can. Here, I'll actually pause it here. I'm actually doing a voiceover here. Usually I like to do like one of these a season, me just kind of going in and playing to the best of my ability, and then going over after for anyone who's interested in learning on how to get better and why I'm doing the retreat patterns I'm doing. And I like to do these sort of reviews to really get into each decision I make, and etc. But before, since the game actually starts out pretty fast, I just want to quickly talk about my deck choice for this. So in the past, I believe I did like one of these with Lockjaw, which is like a very straightforward deck to kind of go through and talk about. Right, you snap if you get Lockjaw Wasp, or similar to that. Here we have Sera Control, which is a much more reactive deck, right? We're trying to dodge priority and then use our tech cards to win the game. It's was not the most popular deck in Conquest, but it has all the tools to beat it, right? So the two best decks for Conquest were Zabu Darkhawk and Thanos Control at this time. So I believe this has tools to beat both of those decks, while also giving me more interesting things to talk about. But yeah, so going to this immediate game, we have Kitty Pryde in our starting hand, and my opponent actually snaps me on turn one. I'm very hesitant to ever retreat to a turn one snap in Conquest in the very first game, unless there's like a really bad location or similar for me, because I would need to figure out what my opponent's deck is, right? Are they just snapping me to bully me, etc. But yeah, here we actually get our Kitty Pryde stolen by Mirage, which is pretty bad because they get to immediately take advantage of a 5-power kitty while we're bouncing a 3-power kitty. So I'm assuming it's probably some sort of collector dino kind of deal, but then I see this Daredevil come down, and I'm like, okay, maybe some sort of control deck where Mirage. Usually you see Daredevil with Professor X, so that's immediately what my mind goes to here. Otherwise, we're just stacking some of our early units into Muir Island to get the bonus buffs, right? Luckily, we had our Jeff there, and we can move it out later, right? For I believe he'll get to like around 7 power. Opponent actually plays Sean here. I guess they already recognize that we're Sera Control, so likely not gonna have anything to Sean. But yeah, so here we get the double Sera on Citadel. I'm assuming that I'm gonna lose to Professor X somewhere. They really can select any lane, but it is a little bit risky actually. I realize here, yeah, they immediately retreat because they just lose the X lane to the Jeff. So I don't know why they actually Professor X there. But yeah, we get this nice early 2-cube lead. Figured out a lot of cards from their deck. Awesome, right? Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. But here we have Aunt Maze. I'm already thinking I want to put Jeff there. Right, getting a 6-power Jeff, probably one of the best things we can do. Can always move it to whatever lane we need to later. And yeah. Yeah, I talked briefly about deck choice. I should talk about a few tech slots in this deck. I think Scarlet Witch is a big tech slot right now. I kind of think all the other cards are pretty core, right? You have your power cards of Bishop, Angela, Hitmonkey, and Kitty Pryde, and then your tech cards of Killmonger, Sean, Enchantress. Mysterio fits under the power cards as well. I guess, yeah, Jeff and Witch are both tech cards here. Yeah, here we found out our opponent has a Ham, which is kind of scary in a matchup where we want to Sera people. Right, that's always gonna hit Sera if I have it. Here it's my Sean, because I don't have Sera. But yeah, Jeff helps a lot versus the lockdown matchups, right? It means that we can safely Sera, and they have to have more power in their X lane. Otherwise, they could lose to Jeff. While Witch kind of helps versus any kind of bad location variance, as well as being a magic counter. But yeah, here's we see the Cyclops, and I finally find out that this is actually a high Evo deck, right? So we did not see any high Evo cards previously. This means, right, one of their cards is high Evo. Likely they have Abomination or some other high Evo cards, maybe a Misty Knight. They catch me with Gamora here, which is kind of annoying since we don't have our Sean. He got pigged. And now we're just really far behind across the whole board. I actually played out this Enchantress proactively because I thought they were going to Professor X on the right, and Enchantress would counter that. I believe I do that a few times in this matchup, just trying to make it so we don't auto lose to Professor X. Here, I'm just like trying to do some math, seeing if I split, like what other power cards do they have, right? Unfortunately, they have the 16 power Hulk, and we do lose 2 cubes for that. But basically, I spent 1 cube here, right? Rather than retreating, I spent 1 cube to see what their top end is, right? They already had Gamora, so I was curious to see if they also had another big thing, right? In this case, Hulk. Whether or not that's worth it is kind of up to your individual preference and what kind of matchup you think you have. It might be more correct to retreat for 1 there. Yeah, so here's the Misty Knight they have, and now we're only missing 1 card in their deck list. Right, because we know 1's high Evo. So we're just playing out the Chuff. You notice I always play Chuff into an unknown location if none of them are purely beneficial. So there's no Muir Island or anything else that buffs the Chuff. So I put them into the unknown. Perhaps that will be something that buffs the Chuff, right? The only real punish you have for that would be Kunlun. Yeah, here I already noticed my opponent's kind of making some big mistakes, right? They're just straight up retreating anytime something goes bad for them, right? That was pretty bad for us as well. So we kind of got away for free here. Here they snap me turn 1. Probably just because they have Shang-Chi, but I have Kitty and Angela, so I decide to stay. I also have Jeff and Sera, which helps in this matchup, right, for the Profix. Sera is just always good in your Sera deck. But yeah, Angela, Kitty on curve is very good. Unfortunately here, I realized that I need to start. I should have played Kitty here to play around this Mirage, and then done Angela, Kitty on the next turn. Right, giving them this big Kitty is not good for us generally. Yeah, here they pick the Sera again. Annoying, but it does mean we get to keep our Sean, right, for this Monster Island. But yeah. So we get the Bishop, and then I'm kind of just trying to figure out where to place it, because we don't have a good way to get into Vormir. I decided to put on Monster Isle. As long as I make sure it stays under 9, should be perfectly fine, since right, they're probably going to Shang-Chi my monster, I'm probably going to Shang-Chi theirs back. So stacking some power there is perfectly fine. Yep, so here they do that. Perfectly fine, right? We have the same tech card in our deck. And we're already just so far ahead on tempo. What I'm kind of trying to decide is it worth it playing the Sean now or waiting until next turn? But what I realize is they could just Professor X their monster, and if they have priority, so if I try and Sean, it's just going to get countered. Unfortunately, they actually don't go for that. They go for Gamora middle to get another big thing. Now I kind of have options to play this Sean, right? But the thing is, if I do play a Sean, I can't fight for Vormir since I only have Kitty Pride left, right? Fortunately, though, we do have Jeff, so I can kind of hedge the Jeff here and go for the Sean and then go for the Kitty and kind of fight for every lane for a little bit. I haven't seen any sort of like Doctor Doom or anything, so I do think it's kind of hard for my opponent to fight for every lane, right? So kind of debating if it's worth the 2 cubes though. Or if I should just stack, yeah, and give up Vormir, which is what I decided to do.
50-50 on the shrine.
But yeah. Fortunately, we did select the wrong place to Sean. If we Shawned right side instead, we would have got their Hulk and their monster, and then we would have won mid easily. Which is the kitty pride in the leaving the draft there. So we do fall behind here. Now we're behind, I believe, 6 cubes to their 7. Or we have 4 cubes to their 7. One thing to note about early kitty pride placement that I should definitely say is you never want to put kitty pride onto a location that's about to reveal. There's not really anything major benefit to putting it onto a location that like reveals while she's on it, but there's a lot of downsides. You could end up landing her on deep space, which would just stop your kitty from bouncing. I believe there's one more location that I don't remember that also hurts the kitty. But yeah, so here I snap because I have the tools to fill Raft. They haven't really shown me that they can fill Raft that fast, so I decide to play Bishop and then get this Jeff so I can go Kitty Pride Jeff, get the Raft card. Feel pretty confident. So I snap, make sure that they're already in for 4. And we'll get to play the Sera out as well, right? And yeah, they don't even fill. They haven't really shown me that they have the ability to fill, right? They would have needed to have Daredevil and Spider-Ham. And I likely would have seen one of those earlier over the Mirage. But since we have the Jeff, I'm not too worried about Professor X here, right? If they prof middle, my Bishop's gonna get bigger. If they prof left or right, they're just gonna tie or lose to the Jeff. They do decide to go and prof left, but yeah, so now it's gonna be a tiebreaker game, right? So they have priority, so I do get a chance to try and Shawn a lane. So a big part of this will be trying to guess it, but with Odin we should be fine anyways. I have a ton of power with this discounted Sera, right? Everything's super cheap. I'm just trying to calculate what's the most power I can put on the board. But yeah, there's not too much to Shawn placement here, right? They could, if they're playing a Hulk or a Gamora, it's 50-50. I'm pretty confident either way. I just put out enough power. Hope this Odin, yeah, and they actually retreat here.
Should always be snapping on one,
which is incorrect, because they might as well stay to see, right, that I didn't make a mistake or something. It was 4 cubes, even if they didn't, like, they didn't save any cubes for retreating. Now here's something else you should note. So since we won those 4 cubes, we're up 4-3. When you're up 4-3 in Conquest, if you're the person that's up 4, you should always be snapping turn 1, because no matter what, you need to win. Your opponent needs to win 2 games in order to knock you out, right? But if you don't snap them, they can potentially leave and get a mulligan at one of those games, right? So if I lose, I still can beat them with 2 games in a row, right? It's always 2 cubes in high stakes rounds. So yeah, just a little thing. It's just easy to remember. If you're up 4-3, snap turn 1. Don't give your opponent extra opportunities. And I think it does go vice versa as well.
yeah.
If you are down, if you're 3-4, there's no reason for you to snap. You might as well wait till the last turn, make sure you're in a favorable position. But yeah, so here we have our Captain Marvel and played in the Nebula lane. I played out my Mysterio early since we have Killmonger. They actually took my Killmonger, so they're able to proc it early. But basically, I was just trying to get maximum buff. I didn't have Hit Monkey in my hand. Even if Sera wasn't picked, I wouldn't be able to play with Dream Dimension. So yeah, but yeah, we do get this top deck Witch, which is awesome. I have Killmonger in my hand, so we can Witch the right, and then we could Killmonger and kill this Nebula and Misty Knight. So that's what I'm considering here. They have a really weak turn 5, most likely, since they can't play Gamora or X. So yeah, we flip into Sacred Timeline, which is kind of funny. it means I get another Nova. So yeah, I'm just gonna go for Nova Killmonger, buff my whole board. And one thing to note here is that with the ordering of the marvels, their marvel will trigger after mine. So if it does come to a position where I'm not really far ahead,
Ignore left side.
my marvel is going to lose me the game. And my Mysterio also reveals first since I played it out early. But yeah, I didn't really have a choice. Couldn't avoid it. Hopefully this will just be enough to win. Yeah, this turns out to be an 18 power Hulk. And then you see my Mysterio reveals, and then their Marvel triggers. It doesn't show the visual, but since my Marvel was played first, she actually triggered first, and then saw that I was winning, so she didn't move. And then their Marvel triggered after. So yeah, given that I got the Marvel from the Bugle, I probably should have tried to figure out some way to wait. I just really didn't think it fit into my curve, so it's kind of unfortunate. But yeah, so now we lost those 3 cubes, right? But even if we lost 2, either way we have to win 2 in a row, right? When they have 3 cubes. So yeah, I'm just in a position, close the game. We know their whole deck, right? The last card is high Evo. So we just need to clutch out the last couple of games. I believe they should know my whole deck as well. But here I'm holding Mysterio. I have Sera and Monkey, so I'm just gonna try and do the most power possible, right? Play the Bishop this turn. Try and get some rocks to put into Nidavellir. Also make the Monkey bigger. So yeah. Here I'm playing Sera into Nidavellir because if they X there, I can easily move Treff into there. Not expecting them to X mid since we have a Bishop there. So only other option really is to X right, but that does trap the Marvel there. So now all I need to do is beat a Hulk, right? Or Gamora. Those are their 2 big power plays. They could technically play a bunch of small stuff into Nidavellir too. But I should be able to just fill that, right? I have Sera out, I have a bunch of low cost stuff. As long as I fill that, we should be fine with that. But yeah, you notice I immediately put Sean middle because of Nidavellir as well. If they do just play Gamora or Hulk into Nidavellir, we are beating it as long as we fill, right? Since we get those bonus power. So if they're gonna beat me, they're gonna have to do it by playing Hulk mid or Gamora mid. Yeah, here I'm just trying to figure out how to put the most power on the board. Right, so trying to get this Antril out to be 4 power. I actually don't have enough to do like Antril, Sean, and Monkey, which is what I was trying to do. So we're just doing this without the Monkey. And moving Treff to Nidavellir just to make sure that they can't sneak some bunch of small stuff in there. Yeah, so they do go for the Hulk mid. They had a Vibranium too, which was kind of scary because I didn't put the real Mysterio mid. It might have been correct to do the real Mysterio mid. But we do have the Bishop there that's going to grow to be large enough, and we have a rock. Doesn't end up mattering here. But yeah, I did forget that they had the rocks. So there is possibility that maybe they could have done something if they had more than one. So yeah, already in the first game, we're in a really tight battle. 8 rounds, both at 1 life. All or nothing. Very nice to get Kitty. I even get a potential buff to Jeff in the Stark Tower. So thankfully we do have a very strong playable hand. But yeah, I think the one big thing to note in these sort of long games is not to get too caught up on previous games, right? Or previous mistakes, right? Especially if you made a mistake not knowing cards in their deck, right? Now I know all the cards in their deck. I know if they're playing out specific cards, that means they don't have other cards, right? Right, they didn't play turn 1, so they didn't have Nebula or Misty Knight, that sort of stuff. And just realize that whatever 50-50s you lost before, it doesn't matter, just try to play the best that you can. Is my advice. Try not to burn yourself out in within this Conquest series. But yeah, so here I'm afraid of them proffing middle, so I decide to Enchantress there. Right, if they prof middle, my Jeff loses to their Jeff, or their copied Jeff middle, which would be really bad for me, right? But they actually surprised me a lot here, and they actually X Stark Tower, which does lose me Stark Tower, and trapped my Kitty Pride, which is very scary. Right, so now I have to try and figure out a way to beat Hulk without my like 8 power Kitty Pride. But we can move Jeff out, so I'm just trying to figure out which lane they're most likely to play the Hulk, right? With the Monkey and the Mysterio and the Jeff, I can choose left or right to contest and possibly even beat the Hulk. One thing I also counted, which I'm actually surprised I locked this play in so quickly, they can't move their Jeff out, because if they do and I leave my Jeff there, they actually lose the prof lane. But yeah, so I figured they wouldn't challenge the Bishop, and I played for mid, and we managed to beat out their Hulk. So yeah, close games, won the 50 at the end because I figured they wouldn't challenge the Bishop, and I counted that they couldn't move their Jeff. I mean, they could, but they would have to, it would be a pretty hard play to make in the 8th round of Conquest and be like, my opponent's definitely going to move their Jeff. Yeah, so now we're going to go into the second game. Queuing up. As usual, usually the first few rounds are kind of feel out rounds for me. Already with Sanctum, I'm like, if my opponent snaps me here, I would leave. Because I only have Jeff to get into Sanctum, and it's very likely there's people running decks with like Doctor Doom and their own Jeffs, right? Other ways to just get into this Sanctum that I can't. Yeah, so we see Sunspot Cage here. Their Cage goes on Space Throne, so just immediately snap, assuming that they don't really have any way to deal with it, right? And yeah, so we get a free cube here. Not really sure what deck they are. Most likely some sort of control deck if they're running Sunspot, right? Cage kind of tells me maybe it's high Evo. Sometimes they like to run their own cages. So yeah, there's Sunspot on 1 again. Still annoying, but as long as we get a Killmonger, it's okay. We don't play Witch here because I'm waiting to see the Lost location, see if that's more witchable. You'll notice I hold Witch quite a bit in a few of these matches because I want to keep it hidden until I'm sure it will be or won't be useful in specific matchups. But yeah, so here I'm witching Negative Zone because I already saw their Luke Cage, and that means they basically get a free win on Negative Zone, right? All my cards will have -3 and all of theirs will have nothing. But yeah, we roll to Lamentus, which means we get to see the rest of our hand, basically. And now I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to sequence out my turns, given that I'm going to Sera next turn, most likely, right? So I decide to trust Bishop. I think I'm already debating on leaving. So just hiding my Nova. It's also better to hold the Nova if I'm going to wait till post Sera, right? I can go Sera into Angela, Nova, Jeff, plus one of my 4 drops. But I also want to get Stark Tower value, so I'm kind of indecisive here. Okay, yeah. So I decide to just give up this game and just try and see what else my opponent has. So I'm just passing, hiding the Sera. Right, the only 2 cards they've seen from my deck are this Witch and this Bishop. They probably could figure out that I'm a Sera deck just from that, but I might as well hide that I'm running Jeff as well. Maybe they won't expect the Killmonger if they don't see the Nova. But yeah. So yeah, here you just see I spend a cube basically to fish for knowledge. I think it's a really underrated thing. You'll actually rarely see me do this on stream, but I do this quite frequently off stream. I think when I'm less distracted, I see the value of it more. And I do think there's a lot of value in doing kind of this scouting thing when you think you're already either have like an unplayable hand or unplayable location and your opponent's not snapping you, right? You should never be doing this for more cubes than like 1 or 2. So now we're going round 3, 9 to 9. I have a general idea of what there's some sort of high Evo control deck. Likely having Prophet Spider-Man. It's my assumption. Have Sunspot again on 1, always scary. Until I get Killmonger. Sewer System again, which is good for them since they have Cage. Okay, so I'm just trying to decide what to put this Angela. Decide to put in Strange Academy. Right. One thing to note also with Sewer System, Negative Zone, those locations, Jotunheim, they also buff your opponent's or reduce your opponent's Abomination. So you do not want to play into those versus high Evo generally, unless you know for sure they don't have Abomination. Yeah, pretty good hand for us. We have Angela, Jeff, Kitty. I have Bishop coming up. I have Mysterio. And yeah, given that this is a Subterranea game, it's a very solid hand. I'm actually surprised I'm not snapping here. I probably should. I even have Enchantress for their Cage, potentially. Which is just even us out in the Sewer System. Yeah, here I snap before the Bishop. Right, so even if I draw rocks, I can get value from Angela and Bishop from them. It's going to be even in Sewer System, and I'm just going to be so far ahead of this Kitty, Angela, Bishop stuff. They do have their Colossus, which is very strong into us. But it's still worth it for me to play onto Angela, right? I get 2 value on Angela and 1 on the Kitty. So even with their Cyclops, I'm getting 1 value. So yeah, just waiting for them. I think I'm assuming that they have kind of a hard turn since they took so long here. But yeah, they play out She-Hulk, which is surprising me a little bit. Does make sense in their deck, right? It probably means they're like a skip style deck. Our Angela does unfortunately go onto the same lane as Bishop, which is always not ideal, right? You want your power cards to be separate unless you're in a matchup where you really need to go tall, right? So you need to stack those and then go monkey another lane. we do manage to top deck our monkey here, which was the best draw in our deck, right? One of the best non-Sera hands you can have is Mysterio, Kitty Pryde, Monkey. So yeah, I'm just trying to decide how to spread this out. Right. And if I should move the Jeff, I decide to move the Jeff, I believe, to play around like a Dr. Doom. Just want to spread out a lot of power. Get the maximum value on my Angela as well. Yeah, they go just Wasp, so they can go get value on the Sunspot, right? Fortunately for us, we just have just too much stats. I believe we can win every lane here. So yeah, really good for us taking 4 cubes here. Yeah, it's a really good setup when you can get ahead this early with good hands, right? Milking your good hands is something that's really separates like some of the better players from worse players, right? Any player can play well, or I shouldn't say like better players, worse players. I should say better Conquest players versus worse Conquest players. Right, any player can put their cards in the right spots and snap correctly and that kind of stuff, but what really separates consistency is when you can consistently get cubes off of your good hands, right, rather than retreats. So you need to make sure you snap early enough, and you need to make sure that you are getting the value that you should be getting from having Kitty on turn 1, right? Having your Lockjaw Wasp. If you have the best hand your deck could have, you should always be getting 2 cubes. You shouldn't be rolling the Wasp first, that kind of stuff. But yeah, so here I'm just deciding where I want to witch, right? Wakanda's kind of annoying for us. Nivedillier is good for us actually, usually we can fill that. And New York is obviously just annoying as always. I'm not a fan of New York. Yeah, so we decided to get rid of Wakanda, makes our Killmonger or Shang-Chi more usable. They pass, which means likely they're setting up for She-Hulk here. We get this huge Mysterio here, which is awesome. So yeah, I decided to pass here. Don't want to play my Killmonger out early. I have Sera for next turn, so I should be able to play everything out. Maybe I could have the Sean as well. Look, they play their Sunspot out now. And now, yeah, I'm just trying to decide Sera, where to put it. Do I want to just stack in Nivedillier, right? So I decided to do that. They play out the A-Bomb, something I noted earlier, right, to watch out for. I do think they are doing incorrect placements, right? You don't want to put that into New York because now it's just guaranteed places that I can Shang-Chi. Right, with the She-Hulk, it's a guessing game, right? Whether or not they move it. Yeah, so I decided to snap here since we have a really strong hand. I think they might not expect this. It's kind of a boomer snap, but it's a you look like you're in a strong position, right? Look how far ahead my opponent is. But I have the perfect counter cards. So yeah, so I decided just to go for specifically these 2 lanes, fill Nivedillier, get this Killmonger off, leave right side completely alone. But yeah, one thing to note, another reason I can get away with some boomer snap as well, New York is super annoying for both of us, right? It does kind of make these into weird multi-sided coin flip games, so a lot of times people can talk themselves into staying. and be like, yeah, they might mess up because they see me move something. But if you look at what I'm playing, right? I'm playing Sean, I'm playing Killmonger. They essentially have two things on board. I have a buffed Mysterio that's also going around. So, but yeah, they decide not to move anything. They just play for middle. They fill Nividillier. Unfortunately for them, we're gonna kill the fill and Nividillier with Killmonger, which means we'll be more than far enough ahead. But yeah, one thing to also note with my placement, in general, I think it's important to, a lot of the times, focus on winning 2 lanes rather than trying to spread power, right? If I put like real Mysterio on Wakandan Embassy, there's not really any value there. I think this is different maybe if you expect your opponent to have Dr. Doom, or if you know they're like a Shuri deck and you can get over Shuri in a lane, and then you're just spreading the other lanes to play around Taskmaster. But in general, it's better to focus on 2 lanes and spread. So that's something that I'm working on personally, so I don't always do that, but I do think it's correct. Yeah, so now we're up 9-1. We just have to not lose 5 games in a row. We have Kitty on 1 already, so feeling pretty confident here. At this point, you're just like, at this point when you're up 10-9-1, etc., just focus on, like, there's no more snapping, right? Just focus on not making mistakes. Don't throw away these leads, right? So also don't slow down in your thinking process either, right? That's something that I make a mistake on. I'm sure lots of you all do, which is get overconfident, make some silly mistakes, lose a couple rounds that you could have won, and then you'll lose like a few rounds to like RNG, right? Sometimes they'll just roll good locations, they'll beat you on X Mansion. So just make sure you stay playing your best in Infinity Conquest. This way you don't have to worry about regretting losing easy games. Is the best way I can put it. But yeah, here we have a really strong hand. Angela Kitty, we have Jeff, we have Sera coming up. Not much better than this, right? Could get Mysterio Hitmonkey. They play out She-Hulk early. I guess we can Shawn it. So just good stuff all around. But yeah, I'm trying to stay behind Pariah while also setting myself up to win these lanes. I think I could have also got away with, you know what? I don't play Sera into Stark Tower because it would bring my Angela to 10 power. And while I haven't seen Sean, I'm pretty sure it's in this tempo style deck. So yeah, that's why I play Sera middle here. Turns out not to mattering because they do shrink the Angela, but if possible, I wanted to avoid being Shawned. Yeah, so now I have 2 things I can Shawn She. I can Shawn either She-Hulk or the Thing. And then I'll get to play out Witch, Kitty Pryde, and Vibranium. So yeah, I'm just counting here. So right, I'm going to go 8 plus 5, so 13. They're going to go down to 8, which means I can move the drift if I want to. So I decide to do that. And that brings me up to 9 middle. And yeah, so I'm just going to stack an extra 11 power there, right? So we're going to go up to 20. And then extra 4 power in Stark Tower.
For mid. It's 50-50.
Unfortunately, they do play Hulk here.
Should realize he has Hulk.
Yeah, here's one case where splitting would have been good. But I didn't see their Hulk before, so I did find it
Just put these two.
better to play around like a potential Doctor Doom, which I thought would be more likely. Like I'm thinking that they probably have wave in here, so I'm trying to make sure. Like they either have like wave or storm, right? Usually. So I was assuming more of a Doctor Doom style play there. Yeah, now that I know they have Hulk, spreading can sometimes be correct if I notice that they're skipping for the Hulk. Yeah, Kitty on one again. Like I said before, decent hand, so just try and make sure I don't make mistakes. Don't play it on middle here on turn 1, because it could be deep space. And yeah, just thinking about the fact that I'm going to skip turn 1, which means I don't have Sunspot or Misty Knight. Just playing out the kitties. Trying to get a big kitty. Right, with Sera, usually you can afford to float some of this mana. Since I know after Sera, the Draft's just going to cost 1 mana, right? Scarlet Witch is going to cost 1 mana. So it's better just to do it out this way. We do pick up the Angela, so I'm just going to set that up in the vault. We have Mirror Dimension coming up, which could be another vault, right? So it's potentially a non-Sera game, and just try and stack this Bishop and Angela in the vault locations. I do also have this Witch that I could use to turn off the vault, so it just depends if I think I'm ahead or not, basically. But like, I also would like to turn off Sewer System because they have Abomination and Luke Cage, so it is also bad for me. So I am thinking about that as well as a potential thing to do. But yeah, I do also have the potential to bait them into the vault.
Sewer System,
right? If I can keep the difference to 5 in the vault, I can use Jeff, like, or 4 to 5, right? 4 would let me win it, but 5 would let me tie it. I can use the Jeff on the Angela on the last turn to sneak power in there, which is very powerful considering they played the Sunspot this turn there. Right, so now I can put the Sera in there, and then depending on how much power they put in, I can add Jeff. And maybe if they're planning on soaking Sunspot, I can surprise them with that. Just waiting this downtime, thinking about what they're doing, right? They did float last turn 3, so it's very possible they're playing She-Hulk here. But they do just go for Shocker and Hazmat actually, which means their Abomination costs 2 mana. So that's something I'm also thinking about. So they could go 2 mana Abomination and float the last 4, but Jeff here would beat that. Because we go to 13 and they would go to 11. But yeah, we top like Monkey, which makes Mysterio a lot more appealing. Right now I can play out Mysterio, Jeff, Witch, and Monkey, and just get a very large Monkey. Put enough power in both spots where if they go for a Hulk, they can only win 1, right? So yeah, I'm just making sure I put enough power out in both spots to not worry about Cage, especially, right? So Cage would bring them up a lot, right? It would bring the Cyclops up 1, bring them up 3 middle. Jeff would still beat it unless they only Cage. So just making sure that. Okay, they actually do play 3 cards here, which is kind of scary. But they do play it into the lane that I have Bishop and my Monkey, so we should be good. assuming that it's not Sean, but we do know they don't have Sean in their deck now, because their last card is High Evo, and we saw the Hazmat. The Hazmat was the slot I thought was the Shanchi.
Another casserole.
Yeah, so we managed to take every lane here, which is awesome. And our Jeff did come in clutch there, right? So they went to 10 in the vault when they thought that we only had 8. So yeah, nice solid game 2 win. Now we just get to move on to game number 3. We faced 2 high Evo players in a row, which is already kind of annoying me because I initially took this deck as a solid counter to Thanos and Darkhawk. Just hoping to see a little bit more of those, especially since I'm just like more used to those matchups, right? I hadn't played high Evo decks in forever. But yeah, so we saw the Nova here. At first I thought maybe it was Sera Control, Wolverine means it's Destroy, right? Which is a matchup that I don't really have counter cards for outside of Sean, I guess. My Killmonger directly benefits them. I don't run like Armor or Cosmo, right? Tratrus is basically useless, so I'm just considering playing it for 7 power, right? 7 power is good. I'm just trying to decide where to play it. And I think against Destroy I want to contest every lane. So, but like at this point it doesn't matter whether I put it left or right? Because the Jeff is movable. So I decided to put it to the right. Yeah, here they already have an 8 power Deadpool because it was buffed by Wakanda Embassy. It gets buffed by this Nova, so I'm already thinking about leaving this game. But we are top taking some decent cards. Central is very good. Debating if Witch is useful here. Right, not really any point to hold on to it. At this point, it's just 5 power, so should commit it somewhere. Not get surprised by a location. I'm just trying to decide where to go. We can't get the buff on the Kitty Pryde and Nova and Hellas, so I don't really want to put it there. Decide to put it in Lumeria instead. Maybe we flip Nowhere or Wakanda. Flip Motor World, doesn't do anything. Carnage Deadpool. Oh, okay, I actually messed up the Hellas buff earlier, so now it's 8. Before it was just 2. Okay, so now final turn. We know they have this big Deadpool, and they're probably also going to play Death. And so I'm just trying to hedge my bets here, and I can play out these 3 and technically be winning every location, right? I'll be 18 on the right. I'll kill Deadpool if they play it in Hellas. Kill Death if they played it into Hellas, if that's what their plan was. So since it's only for 1 extra cube, I decided to go for it. And we do get the call out, and we hit their Deadpool for Sean. So this is something that I might not have done if they snapped me, but since they didn't snap me, I'm willing to pay a cube to see if I can guess the Sean correctly. Right, like this play could lose to Death mid and Deadpool right. But I figured since it was like Hellas, pretty pretty hard to resist playing your Deadpool onto the location that buffs it. But yeah, so here I checked their Deadpool and I saw that it was flipped by peak, right? Basically I'm just checking these to see if they're flipped by peak. Because we both have 3 peaked cards. Most of mine are bad here, but the Sean is not terrible. I decide to wish the Grand Central so it doesn't pull out my Sean or Killmonger stuff, right? If I'm behind on priority on last turn, I can Killmonger Deadpool. Similarly, I can Sean their death null if they have it. I hear roll Triss, which is kind of annoying. Don't really. I would prefer cards from my deck than random cards. Granted, it has the same effect on my opponent. Yeah, so once again, I'm just gonna tap on Enchantress. Here we find out that they have magic, which means I probably should have kept and hidden the Witch. I think magic is a little bit unusual in these decks nowadays. Usually see it in the Nimrod version more often. But you get the huge Sera top deck here. This actually convinces me to stay basically. If my opponent was snapping me earlier in most of these games, I probably would have been leaving. Since they just have such good starts, right? But what matters is the finish, right? So with this Sera and the extra turn, top taking the bishop too, it does mean that we do have powerful turns ourselves. But yeah, here I'm just trying to count. I want to play Killmonger and Sean on the last turn, and yeah, I'm snapping because of that. But what I'm trying to figure out is what else I can play, right? So if I do Killmonger Sean, I'm not going to have enough mana to do Mysterio and Monkey since Mysterio got flipped. So I just decided to play Mysterio out proactively to buff my bishop. Yeah, I'm just messing around with the order. I believe trying to avoid priority if I can. I think we do take prio anyways, so unfortunately. Oh no, we did manage to throw it. Yeah, good. We threw priority because I kept peak small enough to tie. So I decided to with a null, I'm expecting a Zola. So this does mean that it's just safe to Sean middle, right? If they Zola, we'll Sean the null middle and we'll win right. If they don't Zola, it's still gonna kill this Carnage. I'm gonna put Monkey on the left in case they're not soloing. We should be able to beat whatever's over there. And they do get the Venom off, which is kind of scary.
Didn't expect that.
Depending on where this Wolverine goes.
Expecting Zola.
Yeah, the Shang-Chi does manage to snipe the death as well middle. So even though the null's getting huge, we have this big monkey here. That's also going to get buffed by our Nova Killmonger on a full board. Which is just like a ton of value, right? But yeah, I did get surprised by the Venom because I thought I was going to be able to Killmonger their Deadpool. But they managed to keep the stats with the Venom, which was a smart play by them for sure. Knowing that I'm a deck that runs Killmonger, which is a lot faster. Right here they have Dust Domain, which is kind of scary. I'm already thinking that I will leave if they snap me because I can't contest Dust Domain. But they don't snap me. My opponent definitely very passive snap me, right? Even Collapse Mine, you probably instantly snap if you're a destroy deck, right? This means they have a free death already with the Yondu proc. Actually, even without it now, because death is only 8 mana. We do get the Wolverine, which is kind of nice. But I also top deck my Witch, which I think is stronger. But looks like I decide to just wait. Or no. No, I don't. Okay. Yeah, I was like, it makes more sense for me to Witch here, I believe. But you always want to play Kitty first and then Witch, because if you flip into Lumeria, you want to flip after your Kitty, right? This way, your Kitty returns to your hand. So yeah, little things like that you should be looking out for with Witch and Kitty interactions with unrevealed locations. Yeah, so unfortunately again, we use Witch right before they use magic, so this is going to be a longer game, which isn't necessarily bad for us with Monkey, but we do also want to try and get this Mysterio, right? But yeah, we're going to see a lot of their deck here, right? We're just seeing Sabretooth for the first time, we saw Yondu for the first time, so at the very least we're getting good information. I'm still in the position where, well, now I'm in the position where I don't think I'm going to leave to a free death because of the Sean that I have. But yeah, I'm thinking about priority here and if I can throw it or not. And I don't really have a good way to do it, so I'm just deciding to put out power on the board. I'm getting Killmonger here. I was supposed to play Nova. Because yeah, I am afraid of Killmonger for them. I think that's their last card. It makes the most sense, right? For the Deadpool destroy deck. But yeah, luckily for us, just Deathlock. With this playline, it looks like they're just gonna go Sabretooth, Death Null. And once again, I am willing to stick this out and try and snipe a good Shang-Chi and play a huge monkey somewhere and just hope it's not in the null path for 1 cube since they're not snapping. Alright, so here I'm basically just saying you're going to play null mid or left and we're going to Sean middle, win that way, and then win with our huge monkey, our huge bishop, and the Kitty Pryde and Real Mysterio. Yeah, so they actually go for null left, and that means we get this free Sean on the Venom, which grows to null, but unfortunately for my opponent, that's not the lane that we were fighting for. We're fighting for this bishop lane. And our monkey should be more than enough to go over this stuff. So yeah, getting these small victories here where my opponent has favorable locations, definitely huge. But yeah, since we're up 10-2, my opponent decides to retreat, and we get to move on to the next one. Yeah, we had some pretty good callouts there. I think in like 3 of those games we got a Sean off by throwing priority. Alright, so now we're off to game 4. Once again, restarting this pattern of trying to figure out our opponent's deck, which one of our tech cards are going to be useful, etc, etc. We get to play out Jeff here. Doesn't tell our opponent any info about our deck, right? Pretty much every deck can run Jeff. But we do see this Carnage, so now we know it's another destroy deck. I checked their hand size and knew that they weren't Thanos, so they could either be a Phoenix Force deck, which would be synonymous with Nimrod, or they could just be the same as my last opponent and be like a vanilla destroy null deck. The magic here does make me think it's more of like a Nimrod deck, but you saw even my last opponent was playing magic and they're just destroy deck. But yeah, seeing their magic early is really great because they haven't seen my Scarlet Witch yet, so if I can get that, I can potentially scam them. Fortunately, we're not getting it, and they also have this Shuri here. They're snapping me here, and I'm going to leave since I don't have a way to deal with any Nimrods. Right, Shuri, Nimrod. What I'm going to do with my deck, I don't have Cosmo or armor, I have Shang-Chi. So yeah, we're going to decide to leave there for 1 cube. I got a ton of information just from the 3 cards they played. And now we have Kitty Angela and White Hot Room, so I'm just going to snap it. We can fill that faster than the Nimrod deck, and we just have a good hand in general, right? It goes off because they're Enchantress, doesn't really matter. Angela here, followed up with either Bishop or Kitty Pride Chef. Decided to go for Bishop. I think in the Nimrod matchup, this is something I noted earlier. It's okay to stack a lane, since you really just have to go tall in 2 lanes, or at least 1 lane really tall to beat out the Nimrods. Yeah, they're setting up, unfortunately, first they Magic mid, and they also have Shuri on curve again. But I do have the Witch this time, so I'm thinking, okay, maybe I can get a scam off here if they don't play the Nimrod this turn. Right, maybe they're just gonna play like something else. Right, sometimes your hand can be awkward in the deck and you just play like a Destroyer or something. Or like a vanilla Phoenix Force. And they actually play out an Absorbing Man here, which I found a little bit strange, but then I realized, yeah, Absorbing Man makes kind of sense with Venom, right? But it does mean that they don't really have ways to add power onto the side lanes, so I decided to go for this Limbo scam here and just Scarlet Witch it. Right, I'm gonna get a ton of power in Hellas, and then we're gonna turn off this Limbo, which has our Bishop on it, right? So as long as this doesn't turn into something terrible, and since we had this space, it didn't. And they just play Destroyer, which means they win middle, but we'll win the sides. And getting 4 cubes off of this Witch is huge, and the entire reason why I had her in here as a tech slot is to get these scams, right? Similar to Legion, why you run Legion in the Zabu decks. But Witch is much better in Sera, because she's just 1 mana if you have your Sera out. Kitty on 1 again, which is great. We have Angela, which is great. Bishop, pretty much one of the better starting hands we can have. Losing Monkey is a little bit scary, but yeah, this is a matchup. I will note that you won't see me snap too early in, because I usually like to wait to see if they have a Shuri Nimrod, and if they don't have Shuri Nimrod, I snap. If they do, usually we're gonna leave. But assuming they snap after the Nimrods. But yeah, it's just really difficult. One for our deck and some other decks I play. Even Zabu has trouble with Shuri Nimrod. So what you do is you play around the fact that they're inconsistent, and you just make sure you choose the games that they don't have the Shuri Nimrod, which is a significant amount. Right here I have Shuri again. I'm really looking for a Witch here. Be the best draw. Means I'd be able to turn off this Limbo. Yeah, here I'm trying to throw a priority, playing my Sera and Limbo, right? They're gonna play if they're gonna play onto Shuri lane, they're gonna get ahead in Mojo World. Unfortunately they hit Carnage, which means not necessarily true, but they are ahead on tiebreakers. And here I snap because they shirted into Iron Lad Carnage, which is just not good, right? And it's also kind of bluffing a Scarlet Witch, right? So they got witched by us last time on turn 6, now I'm snapping on turn 6 again. Even though I don't have Witch, they're leaving because they can't bluff the Witch this time. And they actually get tilted enough to leave. I guess they just thought they couldn't be the Scarlet Witch. So we did catch a break there for sure. As far as that can sometimes be a tough matchup, and they left there with without losing more than half their cubes. I'm just looking for my avatar. Hold on, let's see. Wait, yeah, I just go over to the Rune Gonzalez squirrels. Darkhawk. Wait. Yeah, this queue time was longer, so skip ahead. Not Thanos. First thing I did was check how many cards they have in their deck. So I see they're not Thanos, so we do manage to make this all the way through without facing Thanos. But we do face the best deck in the game. Already with a Korg, I'm like, okay, this is Zabu Darkhawk, right? So I'm going to discard the Witch Dream Dimension so I can play Sera. We drew the Rock immediately, which is why this deck is, which is why I dislike this deck. Specifically because drawing the rocks just feels so bad. We do see the stature, which means we can assume they have Black Bolt stature, right? Have Zabu on curve again, which is scary. Means they can rock slide us this turn. We already drew a rock from Korg. In our Sera deck that wants to have answers, drawing rocks is going to be very unfortunate. But they actually play Captain Marvel, which is fine, but also it's 8 power, which we can't really interact with. So I'm kind of deciding here how much value this bishop is, right? Because if the on maze misses, it's bad for us.
Maybe I should hold that
So I'm deciding to try and fill mid here. And then this way my on maze thing will move into Nexus. But then I decide to Gamba on the Sera, it looks like. But yeah, maybe Sera and Bishop can carry me power-wise.
Come on here.
Fortunately, Sera doesn't go on to Nexus. Would have been very nice. And now I'm just trying to see, do I have enough power? Can I Enchantress a Darkhawk? And if it's not a Darkhawk, they have 16, so am I beating 16, right? I'm playing out 5 cards as a Mysterio clone, so I'm going up to 8 just from the Bishop. And then +4, +9, which is only like +21 or something, so I'm just like, yeah, it's just anything they play there I pretty much lose to, especially considering they have more power on the other lanes. Here we get peaked. Doesn't really affect us. It does mean that our opponent could have a 0 mana Darkhawk, but more likely they have like 3/2 Chef, 5 mana Marvel, 5 mana Rockslide, 6 mana Iron Lad. But yeah, since I am afraid of some of their cards, right, we see the Chef's not flipped here. I'm not aggressively snapping, right? Only Sera was helped here and not really anything else. So, not a huge advantage. It does help a ton that their pig doesn't hit the Sera here, right? Since the Sera was peaked. Instead it's Enchantress, which is annoying, but they don't have Zabu, so. So assuming we can Sean this Darkhawk, or get our Sean later, we can maybe deal with a Darkhawk. But yeah, they don't have Zabu, they didn't give me rocks. Very potential. We have a lot of potential with this turn 4 Sera. Here come the rocks. Yeah, here I think I'm just counting board spaces because I want to kill Monger on the last turn, but also I only want to play enough to make this monkey useful, right? And with playing out the pig here, I believe I can play out my whole hand and use up all my mana and my cards. Yeah, here I'm just trying to set up. Right, they don't have Zabu. I'm just trying to set up a max power Nova and just spread out enough power and try and win peak if possible. Right, assuming they move the Jeff, they only have 8 power there, so this Killmonger should be enough. If they do leave the Jeff, we're gonna have 5, 4, yeah, we only have 9, so this is kind of assuming that they move the Jeff. But if they don't move the Jeff, the rest of my board should be good, right? They move the Jeff. They do manage to play 2 cards here, which is surprising since they don't have the Zabu. We do roll Rickety Bridge, which is terrible.
Fucking
Mr. Rickety Bridge. Yeah, unfortunately for us, they had a flip talk.
I lost because they have Darkhawk anyways.
Yeah, even if they didn't have a flip hog, we would have lost Rickety Bridge. This is Captain Marvel, so it's kind of bad luck all around. So now we're fighting from a position of being behind, right? So actually I'll take the opportunity here to talk a little bit about playing from behind, right? So we're down 5 cubes to 10. If we want to realistically stay in this game, right, we can't lose 2 to 3 cubes because then it's going to take us like 5 wins in a row, right? If we go down to 2 cubes, it takes 5 wins in a row to catch back up, right? So if I want to stay in this game, I likely need to try and choose a 4 cuber before high stakes. Right. So if I can win a 4 cuber, they would go down to 6 cubes, and then it'd be a 5 to 6, which would be very reasonable. Yeah, so here I'm just enchantressing this up on a curve. Hopefully we can get this white hot room. They don't play more than 2 cards. They can really only play like Jeff plus Spider-Ham or Korg, which they haven't shown us that they have. Right? We do find out that they have the Korg here, and they got the Iron Lad back in their hand, so they will be able to fill up White Hot Room if they so choose. But since we're filling it, and this is cloning vats, and we're gonna need a cloning monkey, I'm actually pretty confident that we'll be winning here, especially since I have the Jeff in White Hot Room, which means I can move out the Jeff and win there, and then likely just put monkeys in the other lanes, right? Yeah, getting this buffed monkey here is great because it's 8, and if I play out 4 cards, it will go up to another 8. So 16, sorry. Okay, so here I'm just doing the math because we do have real Mysterio mid, right? Which means moving out the Jeff here means I'm at 16 mid. Or sorry, not 16. I was at 16 with the Jeff. I'm at 13. Right, and then if I play Kitty Pride, we go to 17. But then I have to figure out where I'm putting this monkey, right? 11, 15, which I think usually should go left. But since we know we're winning White House Room, there is reason to try and go for somewhere else. I'm even considering a Sean here for their Darkhawk. Right, if I go Sean, Monkey, Kitty Pride, we're guaranteed to win mid. And then even if Sean whiffs, the Monkey should be good enough for left side. But they decide to retreat anyways, so but we get 2 cubes here, which is great. This is the last round of low stakes, which means not really much for me. I'm already at 5, so going into high stakes, being at 5 or 4 is different, right? Like you want to go into high stakes with an odd number if you can. So my opponent still has a free retreat yet since there are 8 cubes. Yeah, we're setting up bishop and kiln. Big thing here, I just have to make sure in kiln I can beat their Jeff, which is kind of tough, but assuming I can do that, I can do a lot more. Yeah, I'm kind of deciding if I should turn off kiln or mirror island. Because I think I want to leave Nivedillier. It's pretty easy for me to win it with either Sean or Killmonger, which I have in hand. So yeah, I decided to just turn off kiln. So they could have snuck a Darkhawk in there, right? And if they stuck a Darkhawk in there, I would not be able to interact with it with Enchantress or Sean. Here I'm just going to tempo out Enchantress. I think it's going to be pretty hard to hit the Darkhawk anyways, and I want to play Killmonger next turn. I'm not going to be able to play Enchantress besides it. Fortunately for us, they sequence their Zabu on the left, so they actually dodge this Enchantress. Not really sure if there's any way to guess the difference between Zabu and Ham here, right? 'Cause it's more or less the same for my opponent. Yeah, since last turn, I only have Bishop set up, I have no monkey.
Sean in here, Hawking.
I'm assuming they're snapping because they have Sean and Darkhawk. So I'm trying to think if I can beat Sean and Nivedillier and Darkhawk somewhere else, right? And to beat Sean and Nivedillier is actually surprisingly easy. Since I have this Killmonger and everything else I'm adding there is going to duck under. Right, Killmonger is only 8. Mysterio is another 9. So if they're going to Sean there, they're going to be at 15, and I'm going to be at 17, plus the Nova. And so yeah, I decided to stay here because I do think I need to get a 4 cube win back, and I do think this is a playable matchup, right? They do go for the Sean, but we are going to be beating the Sean there. So as long as I'm winning one of the other locations, I'm good. In this case, I do need to also be beating the Zabu, because the Captain Marvel can move otherwise. And yeah, so this Nova comes in clutch here, puts me ahead mid. And I have this Kitty here on the left to keep their Captain Marvel from moving. Yeah, this was very good. Brings us back onto basically even footing. I believe they're at 4. And we're at 5 going into high stakes, which means I'm actually slightly ahead, right? If one of us decides to go all in, I'll still have an extra life. Right, I'll still have an extra 1 cube left over. Here we flip into Asa Citadel. There is Zabu Darkhawk deck. I think it just makes the most sense to Scarlet Witch that now. Prevent them from playing out the Zabu. Yeah, I'm just trying to decide what to play in Aunt Maze. There's New York down as well, which makes this kind of a coin flippy kind of game. But my opponent doesn't have Zabu, so I'm already thinking about potentially snapping. We do get Ham and Korg here. Luckily they're top decks, right, since we didn't see Korg on 1 or Ham on 2. It is possible they were holding the Ham to try and hit Sera. Just gonna set up his Nova early. Keep bouncing the kitty. They roll into Jeff with Iron Lad, which is always scary. But I do manage to pick up the Killmonger, which is great. Just need to figure out what to do this turn. Most likely it's going to be Enchantress, Kitty Pride. But also I want to keep myself from getting Prio if I can. So yeah, I'm just setting that up, playing Enchantress middle for his stats. They decide to play one thing middle as well, which is Black Bolt. Kills our Hit Monkey, but without Mysterio, it's not that useful. Fortunately, we do draw Mysterio here, but I do have an alternative play, right? I can play Mysterio, Killmonger, Kitty Pride, and get the buff on all of my Mysterios. So that's what I'm trying to set up here, right? No matter what, it's for 4 cubes. My opponent can really only go Stature plus another card, right? In the Zabu deck, maybe Jeff. We know they have Jeff actually, so they could go Stature, Jeff. But then they wouldn't be able to go a 4-drop, right? So it's either Stature 4-drop or Stature, Jeff, and maybe Zabu as well. But we can reasonably say they don't have Zabu in hand since they didn't play last turn. So yeah, setting up here, spread out a bunch of power versus here I think it makes a lot of sense to spread out power since they're struggling to play out a lot of cards, right? And yeah, so they decide to stack middle and we pay off with a big Nova. Let's go! And yeah, in series A, let's go. And yeah, so we made the right call here and win our 3rd Infinity ticket of the season. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little talk with me. And yeah, feel free to ask any questions in the comment. Sorry if I'm tapering off a little bit at the end there. That was actually a very long Conquest. But yeah, Sera Control is still good. Definitely requires a lot of thinking. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Appreciate it, as always. Peace.